Hey guys, so today I want to talk to you about the ideas surrounding a rumoured Battlefield SWAT title, as well as my own ideas for a future Battlefield game. But before we jump in, I just want to remind you guys today is your last opportunity to be in with a chance of winning Watch Dogs. So as I've told you guys before, if you want a chance to win, all you have to do is leave a like on the video and tell me down in the comments below if you would or if you wouldn't be excited to see a Battlefield SWAT game announced at E3 this year. And as before, I will be picking all of the winners at the end of the month. So, Battlefield SWAT. This is an idea I have spoke to you guys about before. The rumours surrounding a Battlefield Police or SWAT themed game have been bouncing around for a few months now. But the closer and closer we seem to get to E3, the more and more likely it does seem that we could be getting ourselves a SWAT themed Battlefield title. Now the rumour goes at the moment this game is being developed by Visceral Games. Now that would seem very likely. Of course DICE are working on Star Wars Battlefront and the upcoming Mirror's Edge. So to be working on a third title, another AAA Battlefield game, would seem very unlikely. So the idea of Visceral Games, a company who have made big titles for EA before, would seem to make sense. Now the more and more likely this story starts to become, the more and more we start to see a massive split in opinions. Now I've spoke to a lot of people who would be pleased to see something a little bit different from your usual military style Battlefield game. Of course, all Battlefield games, no matter what time period, are based around realistic military units, maybe with the exception of Bad Company, but still it does have realistic weapons, realistic locations, vehicles, aircraft, so you could still say it is very much based on realistic military combat. Now of course the only major exception to this is Battlefield 2142, the only Battlefield game which isn't set in either the past or the present day using realistic weapons and vehicles, and that game did prove very popular, so maybe this is something they're wanting to try and head back to by widening out the Battlefield theme. Now on the other side of the coin, there are a lot of people saying, well, a SWAT themed Battlefield title literally wouldn't make sense. The title of the game itself wouldn't even make sense because you don't see SWAT or police units on the battlefield. They don't charge into battle, so a SWAT themed Battlefield game literally wouldn't even make sense. But that said, it doesn't affect how the game would play out. Of course, even if it was a police or SWAT themed game, that doesn't stop it from still having all the same great action we see in a usual Battlefield title. Now the idea of a SWAT themed Battlefield game, be it true or not, has made me think about the idea of opening up the Battlefield theme. Now as I said, every Battlefield title we have seen since the launch of the series in I think 2002, so over 12 years ago now, has been based on realistic military combat. Now that's not to say it's based on a military simulator. Battlefield is of course far from trying to be a military simulator, but it does try and replicate realistic military units, as I said, real weapons, real locations, real vehicles, no matter what the time period, be it Vietnam, World War II, modern day, it is very closely tied to realistic combat. Now of course this is something we have seen with the Call of Duty series. Maybe the first 4 or 5 titles in that series were based much more on realistic combat. We had World War II and then modern day themed wars. But then since then we've seen the likes of Black Ops 2 and Ghosts, both of which are set in the future, which allows the development team to make up their own weapons, their own vehicles, and ultimately create their own worlds, which does give them a chance to try and freshen up the series, not always to everyone's liking. Now as I said, this is something we have seen just once from Battlefield before, with 2142, so if you would want to see something like this again, maybe seeing Battlefield spreading out the theme a bit more, seeing more future-based games, or even games that aren't actually based on military combat, as we said, maybe a SWAT themed game, what style of Battlefield title would you want to see? Now this is something I've been pondering on, and something I would love to see coming from Battlefield is the idea of a Battlefield Homefront style title. Now of course we have had a game in the past called Homefront, and I had a lot riding on that title. I was hoping that game would be really good, but unfortunately, as we all know, that game was a little bit of a flop. Now I'm a big fan of the film Red Dawn. I've seen the original involving the Russians and the new one which wasn't quite so good involving originally the Chinese and then it was switched out to the Koreans invading America. Now this is something I would love to see a Battlefield game themed on, maybe a huge invasion of North America from the Chinese, the Russians, whichever major superpower it would seem relevant to have in the game. But instead of playing as a military unit, you would play as a civilian or maybe a police officer joining a resistance force to fight back against these invaders who are occupying the country. This is something I would love to see a Battlefield title based on. But instead of seeing made up weapons and gadgets as we saw in the game Homefront, this would be a very realistic, nitty and gritty resistance style game. Now of course, the great thing about having a game in this style means it wouldn't really have any negative effect on the multiplayer. You'd still have the great experience you've come to expect from every Battlefield title, with maybe the exception of Battlefield 4. But of course, if it was the Resistance versus either the PLA or the Russians, it means you'd actually be able to have a wider choice of weapons than you do have in Battlefield 4 or Battlefield 3. Of course, civilian weapon choices is a lot more varied than you do see from the military. You'd see things that aren't used by military units, different pistols, maybe smaller SMGs, assault rifles, maybe even things like hunting shotguns, farming weapons, just a wide variety of guns that have been collected by civilian units. So I think it would make a pretty cool Battlefield idea. So down in the comments below, I'd love to hear from you. Would you want to see a SWAT style Battlefield game, or do you like my idea of a Homefront style Battlefield game? Or maybe you've been thinking up your own ideas. I'd love to hear from you down in the comment section below. And as I said, if you do want a chance to try and win Watch Dogs, don't forget to hit like and answer that question down in the comments below. But in the meantime guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.